Yes, the Honourable Member for the City.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I rise to make my contribution to this most important debate, let me begin, first of all, by saying a good morning to all those who are listening to this coverage, particularly those who reside in the city of Bridgetown. Let me also thank the Honourable Leader of the Opposition for her very spirited and comprehensive reply yesterday afternoon, as well as the contributions made by all those members of this side who have already spoken. I know we are having this debate at the end of the crop over season, and so there was a refrain that has been on my mind for the last few days. I think it has to do with a song by Lil Rick of hit after hit after hit after hit. The only thing is that that refrain for me on Tuesday was, it doesn't matter, tax after tax after tax after tax. And that has been last year, the year before, and the year before. And when I listen to the Honourable Minister with responsibility for finance and economic affairs as it relates to the city of Bridgetown, and also the Honourable Member for St. Lucie, all I could hear was promise after promise after promise after promise. The question, therefore, is which of the two honourable members will be crowned the Parliament's monarch? We've moved on to the Olympics where records are tumbling. And if, in an effort not to be outdone, the Honourable Member for St. Lucie seems destined to establish a new national record of being the most unsuccessful Minister of Housing in the history of this country. And I hope to get to aspects of housing before I conclude my remarks. Look, I have spent a long time in another life enduring hardships, lack of sleep, sometimes lack of water, operating in conditions here and abroad in the service of Barbados, where significant challenges confronted me. But I must say, Mr. Speaker, that having been elected to this honourable chamber to represent the good people of the city of Bridgetown, I don't think I've ever experienced anything that has caused me the amount of sleepless nights that I have had as a result of trying to find ways and means to assist the several people who call on me on a daily basis, especially when I know that I do not have the resources to be able to help these people. And so for me, I don't consider this to be a speech today. I don't even consider this to be a presentation. What I'm doing today, Mr. Speaker, is really expressing the outward manifestation of the innermost feelings of this being called Jeffrey Bostic. Because the more and more I participate in debates in this honourable chamber, I ask myself each and every time, when are we all going to reach the level of political maturity and real serious national consciousness that will allow us to do what is right, to make a better life for the people in this country who are enduring serious hardships? That is it. I begin my remarks by saying that we can no longer continue to do the same things the same way and expect not to get the same results. In order to dig ourselves out of the bottomless or seemingly bottomless economic pit that we are in now, we need to demonstrate a level of innovation in our budgetary presentations and in our strategic planning. That is what we need to do. And our economic policies must relate directly to our national strategic objectives. I remember the honourable member for St. Peter once saying to me sometime last year that in order for societies to really develop, we must keep opening up new frontiers. What are the new frontiers of development that have been offered in the 2016 budget? I refer to the country strategy paper for Barbados 2015-2018, prepared and issued by the Caribbean Development Bank, which posits the view that the key developmental priorities for Barbados are transformative shifts in policies, practices, and institutions that are required to underpin a new developmental paradigm. A paradigm, according to the CDB's report, that among other things would contribute to the delivery of higher, more inclusive job-led growth and competitiveness. The question, therefore, is, does this budget satisfy those requirements? And I'm going to deviate to some extent from the norm in that colleagues on my side will have already started to deal with all of the issues related to the budget. But I would like to posit the view that my disappointment in this particular budget is more to do with the unseen, or what I expected to be included in this budget to take Barbados forward, rather than those issues that we are grappling with in terms of what was presented in the budget. And let me give an example of what I mean. Last year, a sweet drink tax was introduced, and that tax was touted to be one of the things that we were going to follow, one of the policies in terms of reducing incidence of chronic non-communicable diseases. That was said. But what that tax really did was to put additional burdens on the working class people in this country who drink soft drinks not because they really want to, it's because that is what they can afford. And the real truth, Mr. Speaker, the real truth is that that was known by the Honourable Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, because he did not anticipate any reduction in the consumption of soft drinks, because the estimated revenue from that measure alone was $10 million. Do the maths. So therefore, if we are serious about reducing incidence of chronic non-communicable diseases, I would have expected the 2016 budget, as a follow-up to the 2015 budget, to include some measures to reduce the cost of those items that we need to utilize in order to transform to healthy lifestyles. But that did not happen. But we keep talking about chronic non-communicable diseases. Talk, but not the real, serious, effective measures required in order to combat this.
Not too high for John, boys.
I referred to those items that I expected to have seen in the budget in terms of taking the country forward. And especially for me, those transformational items, those transformational policies that the Caribbean Development Bank spoke of, the opening up of those new frontiers that the honourable member for St. Peter spoke to me about. I want to look, for example, 2015, we passed the Cultural Industries Act in this parliament, and I remember the day really greatly, because the chamber was full with all of the cultural icons of this country, and we the Barbados, the party, the opposition, supported that bill. And I was really excited when the act was passed. Why? Because in doing my research to participate in that particular debate, I discovered some things that really excited me, because I saw the opening up of a new frontier for Barbados in order to take the economy forward. I learned, for example, that the International Confederation of Societies of Authors and Composers, called CSAC, conducted a study analyzing the level cultural and creative industry sectors. And they determined a few things. One, that cultural and creative content drives the digital economy. That should raise something for Barbados, because we have a lot of creative young people when it comes to digital technology. Two, cultural production is young, inclusive, and entrepreneurial. And three, culture boosts cities' attractiveness. But that study also goes on to say that global revenue from the cultural industry at the time of this study stood at about $2.25 billion and contributed 3% to world GDP. And it also exceeded telecom service revenues, which stood at $1.5 billion, and that industry provides up to about 29.5 million jobs worldwide. And so therefore, having passed the Cultural Industries Act, I expected to see some follow-up initiatives in this budget that would really build the capacity in this new area, so to speak, in terms of our economic development. But I have not seen those in this budget. I have not seen those in this budget. This is a serious omission, I believe, on the part of the government and the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, because they cannot pass, you can't put everything in the budget, but you cannot put everything in the budget, but at a time when you need to be innovative and transformational, it is a must that you put those things that can produce those results. This is an industry, crop over is but one part of cultural and creative industries. And if you pin everything on crop over, you are missing the boat. Mr. Speaker, this is an initiative that ought to have been pursued with greater vigor on the part of the government. I also learned that about 80% of adult travelers around the world include at least one historic or cultural activity while traveling. Heritage tourism is another avenue, another area that I expected to have been built out more in this budget. I really do. Heritage tourism is the highest income earning sector in the international tourist industry, because heritage tourists spend more. We have had the designation of Bridgetown and its historic garrison as a UNESCO World Heritage Site back in 2011. But what significant achievements have been made, or what significant contributions have been made towards the economy of Barbados since that designation? I am saying, and I know that we will hear that there have been piece of this and piece of that. I say no, it is time that we have a comprehensive and cohesive strategy to maximize the benefits of being designated a World Heritage Site. We are not doing that, Mr. Speaker. We have not been doing that. We cannot leave a new industry or new initiative to the whims and fancies of a few. It has to be something that is all-inclusive, that embraces all Barbadians, and that all Barbadians can benefit from and participate in. We need to do something about heritage tourism. What haven't we learned from places like Heritage Pennsylvania, or cultural economy cities like New Orleans in Louisiana? Cultural industries, creative industries, Mr. Speaker, are fueling economies throughout this world. Why are we not capitalizing on that, especially in an area where we have a competitive advantage?
True.
I am saying that I expect in budgets now and going forward that we would see issues relating to heritage tourism that will provide a meaningful policy framework for the restoration of places like the Empire Theatre. Not only restoration, but operation of the Empire Theatre, Queen's Park, Daphne Joseph Hackett Theatre, the revitalization and resurgence of Baxter's Road, Nelson Street, Pelican Village, and areas of that nature. Those are critical to a heritage site, a World Heritage Site, and heritage economy, heritage tourism. They are very, very critical. We operate in piecemeal, but there is no real comprehensive and cohesive plan and strategy. That is something I expected to see in the 2016 budget. And while we are at it in terms of developing heritage tourism and acknowledging the fact that we have the designation of a World Heritage Site, let's not forget the role of the local village rum shop in this process. Instead of killing that industry, please, Mr. Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, do whatever is required to remove some of the hardships being experienced, because that is a critical part of our history, a critical part of our development. Long before we had the plethora of supermarkets and mini-marts, the rum shop, village rum shop, provided for the average Barbadian citizen, and we must incorporate them in anything that we do going forward in terms of heritage tourism. Mr. Speaker, we amended the Electric Light and Power Act, I believe, in this chamber in 2015. And that was in order to give impetus to the green economy by way of seeking alternative forms of energy. This, again, for me, was a disappointment in the 2016 budget, because I cannot believe that we would drop the ball a second time, having dropped it decades ago when Barbados was the leading nation when it comes to solar technology, solar energy. And we dropped it because we did nothing with that ball. And now we passed the amendment. We did not do enough in terms of building out the capacity for this. And I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, that there must be things in budgets going forward to ensure that we maximize on this. At the technical level, for example, whatever is required in terms of the manufacturing of solar panels, photovoltaics, whatever you want to call it, it should be reflected at the level of the technical institutes that we have, and not be operating in a piecemeal fashion. It was a good initiative that we supported in here, but it needs to be taken to a higher level for the benefit of this country and the citizens of this country.
Honourable member, just a minute. Please refrain from shouting across the floor at the member. You all have your respective time to speak. Let the member utilize his half hour. Thank you very much. Honourable, please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know you're attempting to save me, but I can handle him, man. Mr. Speaker, we are going to wait until people come from far and wide to invest in that industry, to then realize that we have not really done enough to ensure that Barbadians maximize on this. That is what will happen. That is what will happen. If we are going to be innovative or transformational, Mr. Speaker, in charting the way forward to developing a sustainable economy, then our budgetary proposals must reflect change, and technology must be at the forefront of that change. And at this stage, let me take this opportunity to thank the director, or congratulate the director of the National Training Board, because I believe that that institution is doing some excellent work. And I have been able to get a number of my people in the city of Bridgetown to attend that institution and to learn some skills. Very, very good indeed. And I want to compliment him. But seriously speaking, we have to go in other directions. And I believe that an institution like the National Training Board needs to be upgraded and given the resources to provide even a higher level of technical and vocational training to the people of this country. And it must be fully integrated into the system, because technology is what is going to help us in a large way to transform this economy. Now let's look, Mr. Speaker, at an aspect of the budget. A budget that is characterized by the ordinary man and woman in the street as the 2% budget. And that is, I am referring to the National Social Responsibility Levy. Or, put it another way, you could say the 20% VAT on the items that it affects. I understand the need to take hard decisions. I understand that. And in life, you cannot avoid taking hard decisions. But this is one decision that I think the impact is going to be greater than the Honorable Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs has anticipated. And I'm saying that because obviously this will carry up the cost of food. It will increase the cost of food, and those small micro institutions within Bridgetown and other places that depend on selling food for a living that are struggling right now. They are struggling because the majority of their clientele don't have the money to buy the food as they usually did at lunchtime. And this is going to make it much more difficult. And I really wish that there was some other alternative rather than to be putting this tax, especially on unemployed persons. And we have a lot of unemployed persons who have to eat. That's a necessity. So I'm not sure that enough consideration has been given to that. Now, the proposal to extend the special incentives area to include Greater Bridgetown is a good initiative, and I support that. Now, ordinarily, Mr. Speaker, I would have been very excited by this. But after the promised new cruise terminal that has not materialized, the Marriotts, that nothing is happening as far as I'm aware, Four Seasons and others, I cannot rejoice. After a UNESCO designation that does not benefit the residents of the city of Bridgetown, I cannot rejoice. After an IADB-funded neighborhood upgrade program that did not benefit the people of Bridgetown, I cannot rejoice. With an urban development commission that has not been benefiting the residents of the city of Bridgetown, I cannot rejoice.
And benefiting the body.
These are things designed to benefit other people, but not my people, Mr. Speaker. When I see full disclosure on these projects, and when I'm invited to discussions as the parliamentary representative for the city of Bridgetown, then all this long talk about these things happening in the city of Bridgetown, I will start perhaps to believe. Now let me come to the question or the issue of the Hyatt Hotel. Let me say this, Mr. Speaker. I try very hard not to be hypocritical and to be true to myself. I spent a lot of time in here during debates asking for things to revitalize the city of Bridgetown. I've asked for a hotel to be located in the city of Bridgetown because I think that it is a good thing and that it is necessary. And that's the truth. And I'm not going to come at this point in time and say that we do not need the Hyatt or that we do not need a hotel. I, Jeffrey Bostic, Member of Parliament for City of Bridgetown, I welcome and support development within the city of Bridgetown. I also have to say, Mr. Speaker, that I know that development comes at a cost.
The member has 5 minutes in which to conclude.
But I also know that development must not come at any and all costs. There were several things associated with this project that I did not know. I was following the media, following one of the advocates against this project. I personally like to have facts before I get involved in discussions. And I've tried as much as possible to get to the facts in relation to the proposed construction of the Hyatt Hotel. In trying to ascertain what is fact from fiction, I learned that no application was made to the chief town planner. No proposal regarding an EIA. And what, Mr. Speaker?
Yes, I remember.
Whilst I don't want to interrupt the honorable member from speaking, I think that we ought to not put ourselves in a position where, because of lack of information, we mislead the honorable chamber, as the honorable member is clearly doing. It is not true to say that the proposed investors in the proposed Hyatt have not submitted application to the chief town planner, have not been required to, and done the various assessments that have to be done, including.
Honourable member, thanks for your elucidation. He said that is what he understands. But thanks for your elucidation. Honourable, please continue.
It's not accurate. It's not accurate to say so. And it's gone to the appeal and all of that.
Mr. Speaker.
Town planner has issued this thing. And
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I said that is the information that I was able to obtain. I am not, and I would never come to attempt to mislead this honorable house, and if I stand corrected, I have no issue with that. If I am wrong, no problem, Mr. Speaker. I would apologize on that score. But my concern, and I reiterate, I have nothing against the development. But there are some issues that we ought to be concerned about, and some discussions ought to obtain. I'm not sure, I'm not an engineer, but I do not know, for example, what the impact of pile driving for a 15-story hotel would be on the structures in the area. I don't know. Like Bethel Church, like the Empire Theatre that we are trying to think. Like the London Bone Towers, for example, that I'm advised was built on swampy ground and really had some foundational issues when that was constructed. I do not know. I'm just asking, and I'm just urging the Honourable Chamber to consider these things. Right? What will be the impact on the sewage and our sewage system, especially with the hotel being located in an area that is already overloaded? Those are issues that I think we need to look at. And not only an environmental and but a social impact assessment as well. And we also have to take into consideration the impact of climate change and sea level rise in terms of doing any coastal developments going forward, because this is a serious thing, right? And the mere fact that I'm asking these questions substantiates the point that I made earlier, that I believe in good faith as the Member of Parliament for the City of Bridgetown, I should be involved in some of the discussions. Then I wouldn't have to be asking these things inside this honourable chamber. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, let me say, Mr. Speaker, that I deal with 2016 since I was not in this Parliament before.
I remember you have 1 minute. I'll give you 1 extra minute to wind up.
But I would say, Mr. Speaker, that in my view, in terms of this economy being turned around, in terms of economic development and transformation and revitalization of this economy, I am not going to accept that anything is happening until I have seen some areas where transformation is really taking place. For example, when we reach the point where we have a national scholar of this country that holds a City and Guilds advanced diploma, until children in this country having graduated from primary school, when they have the list of schools, that there is some technical college or institution along with the normal secondary schools that could help to push some of our children into areas of economic development. I will believe that we are making true progress at transforming this economy when we align our educational system or realign it at all levels to be in sync with the demands and the realities of the labor market, and in concert with a comprehensive and transformational national strategic plan, so that we do not continue graduating scores and scores of children every year who leave school without anything at all, and then we become very surprised after a prolonged period of time that we have social issues that we have to contend with. Mr. Speaker, I'm obliged.
Thank you.